Happy Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. Welcome to On the Pen. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. That's why I'm here. This is Hambone. That's why she's here, and you all are on the pen. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Hambone, how you doing today?
Doing better. We both have had
Surviving?
sick houses the last week.
Indeed.
You're
We
gonna
still
hear
have.
it in both our voices.
Yep, 100%. I can definitely hear it in your voice. I know I still got it, and I feel like I'm backtracking a little bit today. So we've got, for those of you who don't know, in the Knapp household, we have 4 kids. 2 of them are home today, but we've all been sick with a combination of COVID. We had positive COVID in the house. We had positive influenza A in the house, and it's just been brutal. Mostly on my wife Jen, who's still just not getting better. It's the first time that COVID has really kicked her butt, and so yeah, it's been pretty brutal, but hopefully we're getting close to being on the upswing. It's been hard to operate with no energy and feeling kind of crappy, but hopefully we'll get back to it next week. But we've got some interesting things to talk about today in the world of GLP-1s, and Hambone has got a nice little itinerary together for us. So Hambone, what's the first topic we got today?
Yeah, we'll see how strongly my brain is firing today. But the main thing, the first thing was your Substack article on the threats to tirzepatide. Is it Rausch? Is that how you pronounce it?
Roche.
Roche.
It might be Rausch. I think it's Roche.
Roche.
But yeah, that was an interesting one because going back to when I first started the website onthepen.com, this was kind of the precursor to our Substack at obesity.news. I wrote an article about Carmot Therapeutics, who actually Roche acquired in late 2023. And this was a strategic move by Roche to sort of get into the obesity medicine world. And at the time, Carmot's lead asset was an asset called CT388. And it produced some really interesting early weight loss signals. Now, one of the interesting things, Hambone, is like, so obviously the way that it currently is you've got phase 1 clinical trials, phase 2 clinical trials, and phase 3. And in phase 1 and phase 2, it seems like the pattern of the drug companies is to just slam patients with as much medication as they can tolerate, to get as much weight loss in as short amount of time as possible, because that's ultimately what Wall Street's looking at. Like, they want to build hype, they want to build excitement around their drug. And so that tends to be why we get these sort of, exacerbated numbers out of phase 1 and 2 that look like, wow, people are going to lose like 50% of their weight on if they're on this for a year, because obviously the phase 1 and phase 2 are shorter trials. And what ultimately ends up happening is they're trying to balance that weight loss with adverse effects and side effects, and keeping people on the medication and keeping them from dropping out of the clinical trial. So phase 3 is like the come back down to earth clinical trial. So what I always like to tell people is you have to take phase 1 and phase 2 data on all of these drugs with a grain of salt, because there's just a lot of, they're designed to build hype and excitement. But this one's interesting because CT388 is a GLP-1 GIP coagonist, which is exactly what tirzepatide is. It's a GLP-1 GIP drug, where, again, most of you are used to hearing about GLP-1s. And it's sort of a misnomer about tirzepatide because it's actually doesn't have that much GLP-1 in it. Whereas, Ozempic and Wegovy and liraglutide, Saxenda, Victoza, exenatide, and Trulicity are all straight GLP-1 receptor agonists. So this is like, the next generation of obesity medicine. And so Roche disclosed top line phase 2 results. So we don't have all the data, but their top line phase 2 data results on Tuesday showed that their once weekly version of their GLP-1 GIP CT388 patients lost a placebo adjusted 22.5% of their body weight at just 48 weeks. Now, the interesting thing about that is it took tirzepatide to get to 22.5% weight loss. That's what it took tirzepatide over 72 weeks. Again, there were actually no phase 2 clinical trials for Zepbound. Folks in the chat might find this interesting. The phase 3 data, or the ability to move tirzepatide into obesity category for phase 3 was largely built on their type 2 diabetes clinical trials. And so we don't actually have like a comparator for a non-diabetic population at 48 weeks in tirzepatide. We have just a 72 weeks. So my sense is if they would have run tirzepatide in a phase 2 trial for obesity alone, they would have slammed people with that 15 milligram dose. They may have achieved higher numbers than what we maybe think that they would, but we'll never know. So this is really exciting news for Roche investors because their acquisition of Carmot is showing like this might actually be a contender because it's showing that really efficacious weight loss number at just 48 weeks, which is also interesting because the other really prominent GLP-1 GIP contender against tirzepatide is called VK2735 from a company called Viking Therapeutics. Now, it's another GLP-1 GIP, but the weight loss with that one is even higher. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's even higher than this Carmot Therapeutics. We're waiting. Actually, I think we're waiting for phase 3 or phase 2 readouts on VK2735. But the phase 1 numbers, the early numbers with that one, we're looking insane too. So we're seeing some molecules that may be a bit better than tirzepatide that are, in that phase 3 clinical trial status. And so we're looking at maybe 2 years out from these drugs, which is pretty exciting for patients that maybe aren't responding to the current treatments, or I'm not sure if you're not responding to tirzepatide, I'm not sure how much better you're going to respond to a similar molecule from another company, but these are shown to be a little bit more powerful. I got a question in here from Joss. Did I miss, is this an injection by Roche and will it be a quick pen? We don't know all that. Yes. And we do know that it is a once weekly injection like tirzepatide, but we don't know, what the delivery mechanisms will be. I think that's a big question for all of these, like Viking Therapeutics. It's an even bigger question for, because they don't have the infrastructure to build out massive facilities that can manufacture really expensive pens. So will they release them in vials? There's a lot of questions out there. CJ wants to know, does this new medication have a similar side effect profile as Terz? Everything we've seen across the landscape of GLP-1 medications, the side effect profiles track pretty well in terms of the side effects are generally the same in terms of being gastrointestinal disturbances, diarrhea, constipation, nausea, vomiting, those things. I mean, it can get higher. And I think if you looked deep into these numbers, you'd see that these are higher than what we saw with tirzepatide over 72 weeks. But again, these phase 2 trials, phase 1 trials, they're slamming patients with the highest dose that they can get to get the highest weight loss. And again, phase 3 is where they sort of bring that back down to earth and try to make it so that patients have a balance of not only weight loss, but being able to tolerate the drug and stay on the therapy. Because the last thing that they want to do is to slam people with such high doses of these medications that they can't stay on it because of the side effects that they're experiencing. Sue the Dude wanted to know if this is definitely not a pill. This is definitely not a pill with CT 388, but there are some other candidates that they do have. So they have CT 868, which is another one that they're looking at. I believe that this is let's see if I had it in the original. I think this is a GLP-1. CT 996, which is an oral small molecule, I believe. I'm not sure if they still have this one in trial. So they do have definitely some other candidates that are not CT 388. The other interesting thing that they talked about here in this release on this CT 388 data is the potential to be combining it with petrelintide. And so what you're seeing is a lot of these future drugs are being designed to be combined with other therapies. Like right now you have tirzepatide, you have semaglutide, like never the two shall meet. But you have all these companies that are working on GLP-1 or GLP-1 plus GIP that are actually also exploring monotherapies for amylin agonism. And amylin is just another one of those hormones that works on hedonic hunger, that hunger that we get in our brain to eat, that drive to just eat for pleasure, right? And for sure, amylin is another pathway, a non-incretin pathway. It's co-secreted in the pancreas with insulin when you eat. But they're looking at combining these. So Eli Lilly has eloralintide, and actually there's going to be one that hits the market this year, which is cagrilintide, CagriSema, which will be semaglutide plus cagrilintide. That'll hit the market probably late this year from Novo Nordisk. And then you see eloralintide from Eli Lilly that will be combined ultimately with tirzepatide or retatrutide. And then Zealand Pharmaceuticals has been working on one called petrelintide. And petrelintide is another amylin analog that Carmot, or rather Roche, is looking at combining with the CT388. So again, we saw 22.5% at 48 weeks, but what happens when you combine another treatment on top of that, amylin? So again, we're getting to the point where the conversation is going to shift very quickly for people living with obesity from, is there a therapy that can help me get to my goal weight, to, okay, of all the things on the market, what is going to help me get to my goal weight, but also with the best chance at having the best body composition at the end of it? Mm-hmm. In other words, when you lose weight, and when you lose weight rapidly, what is the big concern, right? It's losing lean mass along with that fat. And so how do we not only get the weight down, but how do we get the weight down to a point where the body composition is better as well? And I think that's what a lot of people are excited about for the future of these drugs. And I use an analogy when I'm explaining this to people in real life, is like, when you think about Ozempic, you're literally thinking about like the iPhone 3 or the iPhone 4. I mean, the first one, exenatide, was the first iPhone, right? It was the first GLP-1 drug. It's been around for like 20 plus years. But with Ozempic, you had maybe the iPhone 3 or the iPhone 4, because there was a couple that came before it. And then with the tirzepatide, you have the iPhone 5. Like the iPhone 17 is in the works. And we're talking about them on this channel. And you just think about what your phone can do right now in terms of processing power compared to the original iPhone. That's the same thing we're talking about with these obesity medications. And so we're still very early on in terms of what's available on the market versus what is coming down the pipeline that's going to ultimately help to, I believe, eradicate obesity in our lifetime, and then get people in, it's going to really have a profound impact. It's just along the way, what are the trade-offs? And I think those are the bigger and broader conversations that need to be happening, honestly, in terms of what is the trade-off, especially when we talk about hedonic hunger, that pleasure reward center, and basically shutting off that center of the brain. I would like to know, what the trade-offs are long-term, because I feel like tirzepatide, the GIP component, is very, very effective at shutting off that pleasure reward center. But what's the trade-off for people, and how is that sustainable long-term? Because studies are showing that you have to stay on the medication to keep the weight down, because of course, obesity is a chronic relapsing disease. So this was an interesting one. We've got an article again over at On the Pen, our Substack, which is just a newsletter, and you can get there by going to otplinks.com. That's why we leave that banner at the bottom, because it's an easy way to get to sort of everything that we're talking about. So if you just type into your browser otplinks.com, it's going to take you to all of the links that we share, including yesterday, I think we threw something up there. There's a PCOS trial. So I don't know if you all caught the video that we put up this past week in the big Substack article that we wrote, but there's a new and exciting clinical trial being done in the realm of PCOS, where it's actually testing it with tirzepatide. And the interesting thing that they're doing in this trial is they're actually testing ovulation and fertility outcomes, which are something that the insurance companies take much more seriously, and even employers take much more seriously, because insurance companies and employers still want to view obesity as a cosmetic issue, where when we get into the topic of fertility, which obviously PCOS impacts, we're talking about something that is widely and broadly accepted as, medical issues with underlying biology that hopefully this study will show can be addressed with tirzepatide. So I really hope that you'll go back and check that out. It's again at otplinks.com. We'll link you directly to that trial, or you can go to obesity.news and watch the video that we did and read the article that we posted about that. So,
and I
yeah,
think
that was
it's
a good
really
one.
interesting that PCOS is also an issue that took a long time to be validated and even studied, and
Yeah.
as so two things that are just entering the health sphere as being more understood and more widely accepted as a real issue.
Yeah. And PCOS is wild because, as I said in the video that we did the other day, I don't think that there is a condition that is more frequently brought up in the On the Pen community by our viewers, which skew like 75% female, than PCOS, because women have been so gaslit at their doctor's office. Because I mean, everybody with obesity, male, female, whatever, can imagine going into or can recall a time going into the doctor's office and basically being told, you got a cold, hey, you'd get over that cold a lot faster if you dropped your weight a little bit. You got some knee pain. Hey, that knee pain wouldn't be as bad if you dropped a little bit of weight. Just pay attention to your weight. And PCOS has been just like, if you live with it, you've been bludgeoned with that, eat less and move more your whole life. Like, but never treating the underlying biology of obesity, which impacts PCOS in a really profound way. And vice versa, right? If you have PCOS, you're likely dealing with issues of insulin resistance, high androgen levels, all sorts of things that are impacting your biology, which make it difficult to get your weight down. And so that's why I think this trial is so hopeful. While it won't lead to indications, if it gives evidence, it's going to be hard for insurance companies to deny a doctor's appeal to cover tirzepatide when you have clear evidence, placebo controlled. It's a 72-week study that I believe ultimately show that patients treated with tirzepatide saw massive improvements in their fertility. So that's really exciting. They didn't get a lot of views over here on YouTube, but gosh, I know that they're I hope that y'all will check the video out and share it with somebody who needs a little hope, because I think that that's a really exciting one. It's a good point. And women have been gaslit for years over PCOS. Like it's something that's something they have by their own choosing, right?
Right. And an extremely debilitating and complex issue too. So it's
Absolutely.
so exciting to see how GLP-1s can play a part in that.
Absolutely. I'm excited. And there have been some GLP-1 studies that have been done before with liraglutide, but again, that was like, the iPhone 2, we haven't even looked at PCOS with tirzepatide yet. So this will be an exciting one. The next topic I think is pretty obvious what that is, because she's right here with us. That would be Serena, right? So Roe dropped a little nugget today that they are going to have their first Super Bowl commercial. So let's watch this one together. See what we think of it.
I'm on Roe, 34 pounds down on GLP-1s. Healthier on Roe. Supported on Roe.
I don't know why they didn't choose me.
GLP-1 options. Now even in a pill. Weight loss expertise I trust. I'm moving better on Roe. I'm feeling better on Roe. I'm Serena Williams. This is me on Roe.
I think this is just a brilliant commercial by our friends over at Roe.
She looks incredible.
She looks incredible. But I think it's just so relatable for women, and such I love this Roe collaboration between Serena Williams from the get-go, because I think it's like anyone who looks at that and goes, if the GOAT, if the greatest of all time has had an issue controlling her weight. And wasn't there some interesting quote that she had today that you were sharing with me?
Yeah, she was saying that if she had, she feels something like the healthiest she's ever felt, and that if she had had GLP-1s when she was playing actively competitive tennis that she would have been the best. She would have been amazing, I think was the actual quote. And so that
Mm.
says a lot from
She
somebody who's like one of the hardest working athletes in history, one of the most accomplished athletes in history. Like, that's no small statement. That's
right.
a
To
big deal.
imagine her being better than what she was. I mean, she was Serena's husband owns Roe. He's a shareholder, I believe, but
Oh, is he?
yeah, he doesn't own Roe. I mean, he owns a piece of it in the same way that anybody owns stock owns a company, but
Yeah.
yeah, so one of the things that I think is super cool is the validation. But they're so on point with their marketing. Like, even from a marketing perspective, even watching the way that they kind of showed the pen and like the liquid in the pen turning into the pill so that people know like it's the same thing, just in a pill form. I just like their marketing is so on point each and every time. And so it's cool to see them getting into the space of advertising on the Super Bowl, which is quite the juxtaposition to like Hims and Hers health. So I don't know if you remember this, Anne, from last year, because you weren't like really living in this world too much. But last year, Hims and Hers put out a very anti-pharma, I would say, advertisement that I think really resonated with a lot of people. They were very successful in sort of getting their message out during the Super Bowl last year. I believe they're doing another one this year. But yesterday really went after, and so you see Roe is kind of like taking the other track, like they've really partnered with pharma. I didn't see anything in there that was like branded Wegovy, the pill or the pen, but they're very identifiable, right? Which is interesting because there was some news today. Did you have that article about how much money Novo Nordisk has been spending on advertising in the United States?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of crazy. I think it was the first 9 months of 2025 that they spent 500 million on Wegovy and Ozempic ads. So that's just, so
Wow.
just the first 9 months, which is more than double what Eli Lilly spends.
Wow.
I think that includes Super Bowl advertising and coincides with like the Wegovy rollout. But
Which
still, it's
the
that's
Wegovy pill,
unfathomable.
the Wegovy pill rollout. Again, I'm just speaking strictly from a marketing perspective. The Wegovy rollout has been masterful. It's been a master class in marketing because you think not only has Novo Nordisk outspent Eli Lilly by a lot in this first quarter, which makes sense. They're launching the Wegovy pill, but you think of companies like Roe and Weight Watchers and trying to think of the Life MD, some of these massive telehealth companies that are also advertising the Wegovy pill in their own way, like access to the Wegovy pill. But again, it's getting that image in front of people. And Novo Nordisk is not directly spending advertising dollars on that. And I assume that whatever these financial agreements are not rolled up into that. Like that's just a straight ad spend for Wegovy and Ozempic. I mean, it's just been a masterclass in rolling out a new drug. And so I love the Serena thing. I always have. Obviously love Roe and love the people at Roe. And I think this is a really exciting thing for them. So congratulations on that whole campaign. But to have a Super Bowl commercial is pretty cool to see happen, and just to bring awareness. I think the pills have been like a really cool gateway to people who may have been interested in trying a GLP-1, but have been maybe averse to the shots, or they just don't want to fess up to being on the pen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the story of thousands of people in our own community that have not even told their spouse that they're taking a medication to treat obesity. There's still so much stigma and bias, but the pill, I think, opens the door to treatment. I don't know how much it does to advance the narrative, but certainly the more people experience the benefits of these medications, it's even outside of weight loss, right? The reduction in inflammation, the improvements in kidney disease, the improvements in cardiovascular disease, the with tirzepatide, the treatment of sleep apnea, all of these things that don't even necessarily have to do directly with weight on the scale, but people experience these benefits. I think it's an amazing thing, and I think pill has been a really, I mean, I think it's blown people away.
Yeah.
I think believe that they are, like 20,000 new prescriptions a week. They're outpacing,
Wow.
which is even a more powerful drug, but
Mm.
at the end of the day, I think they've just opened up the sort of portal to treatment for a whole new sector of the population.
Yeah, and well, I think just one more point on the statement that she's making in the position that she's in is that she's got to understand the sacrifice and unbelievable work ethic that it requires to become an athlete at her level. So for her, I mean, I know there's complexity because maybe she has a stake in the company through her husband, but for an athlete that knows that, I just don't feel like it would be easy for her to make a false statement about that because she doesn't want to give up any of that hard work that she did to become an athlete, but for her to validate that this would have helped her. And
Yeah.
I was just remembering that she had some like massive health scare and doctors were not listening to her. Like she almost died. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
And it might have been her sister, but I'm pretty sure it was her because she's always just been more in the public eye, I think.
Right.
But she had like a huge health scare. It might have been post having children. And so she's always been somebody for me, in my mind, somebody who has advocated intensely for your
Mm.
health and to know what's going on with you and to be able to communicate with your care. And it's like she's somebody who has all the money and all the access to the best people. And she's been vocal about how that's a difficult thing. And so
Mm.
I don't know. She's just a very respectable person in my mind to look to for this type of information. So it just
Yeah,
feels very layered.
trustworthy. In a world where, it's hard to parse out like what's even real anymore with AI, I think trust, I
And
think you're hitting on a huge thing, and that's trust. And people
yeah,
trust somebody like Serena Williams. Like, listen, if I don't think that there's really anybody out there who's doubting that she's benefited from this drug. I mean, her story is extremely compelling. She was just on a podcast with Oprah again, who also Oprah, like you're talking about two women who have conquered the world, and you don't conquer the world the way that Oprah and Serena Williams have without a massive amount of dedication, hard work, willpower, all of those things that really, when people think of obesity, they think that those are all the things that people with obesity lack. Right. And so you have two massive figures who are both going, hey, I needed this because of my biology. And again, Oprah's talking about, Serena's talking about some of the same things that we've been talking about on this channel for 4 years. But in one fell swoop, they hit as many people in one soundbite as we hit in 4 years. And I think that's just an amazing thing. And it kind of reminds me, a couple weeks ago, Tom Brady came out. He's got a stake in a company as well that's selling GLP-1s. And that didn't hit me the same way. I think the meta picture, I think it's great that Tom Brady's talking about it because it shines a light on the medication. And like, listen, if it helps, some men out there who are going, if Tom Brady says it's okay, it must be okay. The difference between Tom Brady and the Serena story is Serena needed it. She needed the medication, right? And so that's where I failed to sort of connect with the Tom Brady thing, because it's like, this doesn't seem like a guy who's probably ever needed a GLP-1 to control his weight. I could be totally wrong about that, but it didn't connect with me the same way as the Serena thing, and definitely the Oprah thing, because it's again, two women who have absolutely accomplished everything that they set out in life to accomplish through willpower, hard work, grit, determination, stick-to-itiveness, overcoming adversity. Like I've said before, like Oprah was the punching bag for every fat joke that existed when I was a kid. It was your mama's so fat, and then the punchline had something to do with Oprah. I mean, it was like constant. And this is somebody who accomplished everything in life, but could not tackle that one thing because the science hadn't gotten there yet. And now that it has, I think that, I mean, I just give so much props to both of these women for whatever their
Raw
financial.
grit.
Exactly. And whatever their financial involvement is, who cares? At the end of the day, I think both of their stories are so compelling and shine such a light on this, and just ultimately help people get better care, better treatment. And I think those are all really positive things. So I'm a big fan of all of this, this whole campaign that Ro has done, I think has been masterful. So on that note, I think we had, when we're talking about what Serena struggled with, perhaps, part of her weight struggles have been due to, things like insulin resistance and things like that. And I think all really important things to be aware of as we grow old. And you kind of have been dealing with your own kind of set of just trying to figure out, maybe as you get old, you're getting old, you're an old lady now. You're just 2 years behind me. So I just turned 40 this year. You're a couple years away from being 40. And I
Year
think
and a half.
a year and a half, just even closer. So tell me a little bit, you were telling me a little bit about before we came on, but I think that it's kind of an interesting, some interesting data points that you have to share. So what's been going on?
So again, like we've established, I'm not somebody who has dealt with obesity as a disease, and I've been one of those lucky people who just has the right situation where I can just kind of watch what I eat, and I happen to just like foods that are quote unquote more healthy, and that with very little exercise can maintain a weight. And I've even had a lot of commentary in my life about how I eat a lot throughout my life, and that's never really been a problem for me because I just don't have a problem maintaining a weight. And well, in the last year, I really have noticed an intense shift in my metabolism and my energy levels. I mean, I was just reading about the science that your skin actually, like your aging can happen overnight, and you actually can notice a significant change in the next day. And that's actually how kids grow. They grow, they grow in spurts. Like when you see a kid and you're like, you look an inch taller than you looked a week ago. And it's because they literally do have these growth spurts at night. And I thought that was incredible to hear, because it's like, oh, that rings pretty true. But anyway, I've just felt a massive shift in my energy and my I can just feel the aging happening. And I've been mentioning to my husband as I've been watching kind of my carb intake. I'm not trying to eat keto or anything like that, but I'm just trying to lower my carb intake because I've put on some pounds. And I ordered this bread. I don't know if I should say the brand, but it's supposed to be.
What is it?
I think it's called Ryo, RYO. And they advertise that they're high protein, something like 10 grams of protein and only 5 net carbs for one of their bagels or something. And I ordered them, and my husband was just like, "Oh, net carbs, that's bull. That's not a real thing." And I was just like, "Just let me live in my fantasy world for a minute." And I was so excited to get them in, and I tried like one of the cinnamon rolls, which was great. And then a while later I had half a bagel and a little bit of protein on top of that. And then maybe 2 hours later, I was just being real, overindulgent. I'm like, I got to try the chocolate one too. So I had a chocolate one. And then I was coming off of getting sick, but I very quickly was in like a comatose state. I was just like, I'm gonna narcolepsy level tired, like you described it when you were feeling like maybe something was wrong and you went in and were diagnosed with type 2. And I'm just like, okay, since going lower carb for the last couple of weeks, I can really, really notice the difference. And I'm like, am I dealing with insulin resistance?
Have you ever had your insulin levels checked by your doctor?
I don't know. My husband and we go to the Mayo Clinic. We're in the executive health program now, and they did a whole battery of tests earlier in 2025, and I'm thinking they may have checked my insulin. You know, they ask you your whole family history, and I mentioned that you were diagnosed with type 2, but insulin hasn't really been a huge thing, a little bit on dad's side. And so I don't know if they specifically tested me. I need to go back and look at all that. But I don't think it would have been on my radar without you talking about all of this stuff and learning that, you know, you don't have to be someone who's, it's not mutually exclusive to be obese and to have type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't think
Or
it would have occurred
pre-diabetes.
to me.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested. I think I'm going to get a monitor, and you know, some of the biohackers that I've followed over the last decade, they have, as they've monitored, they've noticed that things will push them higher in insulin than other foods compared to other people. And so that's always been something that I'm like, okay, I think I want to check into that. But anyway, I'm just shocked, and I'm very, very glad that I have you to talk to about this and that I'm been learning about this.
Yeah.
This
One of
is
the things
life
that I would,
debilitating.
for sure. I mean, yeah, if you're again, I can identify with that narcolepsy level tiredness when I eat carbs. A lot of people, you know, because I've kind of been in the spotlight in the GLP-1 community, and I'm like still fat. And so, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get that in the comments, like, hey, haven't you been making videos about this stuff? You're still fat. I don't understand. Without going into the weeds on all of that, I think that one of the things that's important, like you can get a continuous glucose monitor, and that's going to tell you what foods spike your sugar, but it's not going to tell you the whole story. And that's why I recommend to so many people, like, get your insulin levels checked, because the way that we measure diabetes in this country, I think, is flawed. And again, I'm saying this not as a medical professional. I'm just saying this as a guy who's studied this for 4 years. You know, one of the things about type 2 diabetes is they start to measure it by what your A1C, which is just a 3-month rolling average of what your blood sugars are, right? But you can have good blood sugars. Like you could have, let's say, a 5.2, which is around what mine is right now, controlled with GLP-1 as a diabetic, but it doesn't tell you the whole picture, because all it tells you is that your body's controlling your glucose levels, but it's not telling you how much insulin it's taking to do that. It's almost like thinking about a car, right? You can have a giant semi truck and you can have like a little Prius, right? And they can go the same distance in the same amount of time, right? But one takes a massive amount of fuel to do it and the other doesn't. And so that's kind of how insulin resistance is it may be requiring a disproportionate amount of insulin to keep your blood sugar low. So in my opinion, when they measure pre-diabetes, they shouldn't wait for the wheels to fall off with your A1C. By that time, you're falling into diabetes and you can't do anything. But if you can tell early on that even though your A1C is good, but it's taking you an exorbitant amount of insulin to do it, you're going to save yourself a lot of problems, because then you can start treating it early on before the metabolic wheels have fallen off. And for me and people with type 2 diabetes, that's what has happened. You have a disease of insulin resistance. You have really high insulin and your body's no longer responding the same way, and your sugars go up. And so you just need more and more insulin. And so oftentimes we've just treated the disease of type 2 diabetes with more insulin, but it's not an insulin problem. It's an insulin resistance problem that has other things. And that's why for me, I did a year of keto when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, a full year of hardcore keto. And I controlled my A1C, but my insulin levels never came down. It wasn't until I was on Zepbound or Manjaro for like a solid year and a half that actually my insulin levels came down to a within the normal range. They were still high, but they're, you know, and so the metabolic wheels have fallen off, and there's things that you can do to address. And for me, ultimately, my insulin levels really started to come down when I removed alcohol from my diet altogether. And I think that was a big contributor for me, but for other people, it's going to be something else. And so I think that it's important for people to know that in addition to your blood sugars, it's probably would behoove you to look at your insulin levels and see how much your fasting insulin, like you shouldn't be requiring a lot of insulin in your blood if you're not eating anything, right? And so they take your fasting insulin levels, and if those insulin levels are high, it's probably a good alarm bell for folks to know it's time to maybe address some things dietarily while you can, before you need medicine to control your full blown type 2 diabetes. So I think that that's a really good point to bring up to people. And ever more, we're seeing more about microdosing GLP-1s for something maybe exactly like this. Again, we don't have data, we don't have trials to say that this is exactly what it's for, but I think ultimately the way that GLP-1 drugs work is that they stimulate the beta cells in your pancreas to be more efficient at sensing the nutrients, releasing the appropriate amount of insulin at the appropriate amount in the appropriate amount of time. They also keep your liver, because this is another big part of it. Your liver makes sugar. And so if your liver has the ability to make sugar and your liver is out of whack because your metabolic system's out of whack, then your blood sugars are going up despite the fact that you're not eating sugars, right? And so one of the things that GLP-1s do is they inhibit the liver's ability to make glucose. And that's ultimately what, some of the early diabetic drugs like, is it glipizide, metformin, that's its main mechanism of action, just keeping your liver from, I believe it's called glucogenesis. Again, we're getting into, like, I'm just a dude on YouTube. I'm not a doctor I'm a pretendocrinologist, but that is what metformin did. And that's why when you stack a GLP-1 on top of that for a diabetic, oftentimes they see increased weight loss, because it's just stacking another mechanism that's keeping your liver from driving your blood sugars up, and then create your body's responses to make insulin. And if you know anything about the hormone of insulin, insulin's number one job is to drive energy into the cells. What is that ultimately? It's weight gain. That's insulin's job, is to drive energy into the cells, out of your bloodstream and into your cells. And ultimately that's converted into fat if it's not used up. And so all of these things play a huge role. And I think that that's a super important thing for you to flag for your health. Again, not everybody's wheels have fallen off metabolically, but there's a lot of people who ultimately see
We're on our way there.
Absolutely. And it's good to catch it ahead of time. There's a couple questions I want to get to here, Hambone.
Yeah.
Not me wants to know, today Wall Street focuses on total weight loss and speed of loss, 100%. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. Do you think that will shift to focus on side effects, tolerability, and other benefits as we start to get more options? I think that those are going to become more important, because you got to prove yourself better than tirzepatide. Tirzepatide is a benchmark right now. And of course we have retatrutide coming out in about a year and a half, maybe a year to a year and a half. Those are going to be the benchmarks. And so unless you have better weight loss and better tolerability, less side effects, or you have to take it less often, or it's available in a pill, something, you have to differentiate yourself from what's available on the market. So that's going to be the number one thing. And that's where people are focused at now. But really what I think it's going to focus on is the quality of weight loss, because even with tirzepatide in the clinical trials, I think you're still at 20% lean mass loss along with weight loss, and that along with fat loss. But ultimately, if you could get the weight down and have it be, 90% fat, then you're preserving your muscle mass along the way, and you get thin, but you don't get, skinny fat, as they call it. And then also, you think about the upswing, if people have to come off these medications for some reason and they gain it back, you're not gaining back that lean mass in the same volume that you lost it. And so if you started at, let's say, 200 pounds and you get down to 170, and you lost, of that 30 pounds that you lost, 30% of it was lean mass. When you go back up to 200 pounds, you're gaining mostly fat back. So you're fatter, your body composition is less ideal when you gain it back, which is why I worry about the future of these medications in Medicare. We need to get the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act passed so that we can codify, because once these folks get on GLP-1 on Medicare and they get their weight down, if all of a sudden after this pilot program ends, we don't pass the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act and they get the drug taken away from them, then they're going to gain it back and they're going to be in a worse metabolic state than they were before they lost the weight. And so that's why we've started a companion YouTube channel called GLP-1 Medicare. We're working on a website, should be up shortly, called glp1medicare.com. All those things, because we want to help support people in preserving that muscle mass, having a better quality of weight loss. It's not just about quantity. We're in a world where we should be paying more attention to those things along the way. I want to say hello to RE from Houston. Appreciate you being here and appreciate your kind words. Always appreciate all the encouragement y'all have given me as we've been sick over the last couple of weeks. And then all the comments like this really are an encouragement, because you don't feel that every day when you work. Like, the perfect example is, I thought that the PCOS video was going to be huge. Like, there's so many people that have mentioned it, and then it just does nothing on YouTube. And then it gets in your head, because then you go, hey, do you really think that this is worth it? And so when I hear comments from you guys, sometimes they're the thing that keep my mentals going for that day. And so I really appreciate all the positive comments that y'all leave.
Yeah. Thank you.
Becky says, as we lose weight, we lose it in different parts of our body. This time for me, I haven't got totally flat chested. Becky,
it's a big deal.
I'm very happy to hear that for you, Becky.
I'm not sure how men deal with this, but Becky, I feel you, because it's like, I was just watching a video of a gal who's talking about, weight loss, and you lose all your adipose tissue in the top of your chest. And it really, for some women, we feel disfigured. And I don't know, how we should feel about that, but some of us do, and it's exacerbated by getting older too. So when you're dealing with the weight loss and losing in certain areas, it just makes you feel more self-conscious. Not to mention, you don't have the muscle to start working out again if you're losing all of your muscle and then gaining weight back. It's a vicious cycle. So that's a big deal. I'm with you, Becky.
Yeah. Emily says, as estrogen drops in perimenopause, it is common to become insulin resistant, even if you've never had it before. You're possibly at the beginning of perimenopause. And
yeah. Yep.
That's a crazy
something.
thought.
No, and I just heard some statistic about women with ADHD tend to enter it earlier than other women. I need to go look at the actual study on that data, but I was just like,
ADD usually a procrastinating thing. What do you think? Like, with your ADD, it just
know.
pushes perimenopause up till you're like 50, 60. I don't know when menopause hits for women, but
yeah, I mean, you can get peri as early as your mid 30s. But you can, with genetics and then with certain diet and whatever lifestyle, you can avoid it till, 60. It's kind of crazy, full on. But that's why I find the PCOS topic so compelling, because a lot of women have it that don't even realize it. And then it can be very difficult for pregnancy, and then for complications for peri and menopause.
Sure. That was one of the things I flagged in the article that we did about the PCOS trial was many women, it's missed or underdiagnosed. I mean, that's the thing that I hear constantly from women in the community. So the dude wants to know if lean muscle mass loss could affect your heart. I definitely think it can. I mean, obviously for your cardiometabolic health, muscle mass is a very important thing, just for the use of energy, all of those things. So they definitely do affect your heart. And I think one of the things, your heart is a lean muscle, right? And so there have been studies that have looked at when people lose weight, what does that do to the size of their heart, right? Obviously, you hear about enlarged heart, and that's a bad thing, but you also don't want to lose heart tissue as well. So all things, maintaining your muscle mass, hitting your protein goals, getting some resistance training in. And, I've seen this go around from many doctors that are talking about GLP-1s online. And I'm so thankful that there's medical providers that choose to share online. We've had many of them on the podcast before, but they flag this all the time. It is so important that you're paying attention to your muscle mass, because these drugs aren't designed to make you completely lose your appetite and never eat. You need nutrients. No matter what weight you're at, you need nutrients for your body, and you need to fuel your body appropriately. So unless you are doing those things long term, when you deprive your body of nutrients, it's not a good thing. So something to definitely pay attention to. TT, welcome back. Good to have you here. Appreciate you being here when we go live here. Appreciate your support with all the new medications that's coming out. What do you think is going to happen with the compounding companies? I think the compounding is always going to have its place. I don't think it's ever going to go away fully, but I think, thankfully, TT, I think we're getting to the point where the cost of these medications is coming down, that it's becoming less of an issue. Like I started a petition against some of the legislation that is going on around the country to help to try to thwart compounding. And what I've found is the community is not reacting the same way to that as they would have a year or two. And I think that's twofold, right? I think fewer people are relying on compounds because the cost of the branded has come down 50% in the last year. And even looking at these pills, it's $149 to start. There are compounding companies that are offering oral versions for more expensive than that, but you can get the branded for $149. I think the community here online, I'm not talking about the greater, collective. I'm talking about the online community. We're informed, we're engaged, we know. They're just not upset about it because they know that they have access, or they've gone the other direction and they're just using the gray market for everything now. And so I think that leaves like a very silent few in the middle who really, from the community standpoint, who really get worked up about what the future of compounding is. But I think that the broader conversation about compounding is we need a healthy compounding economy in our country, because we need the ability to make medications that go into shortage. We need to be able to have a backstop to relying on drugs from around the world when things get squirrely on the world stage geopolitically, et cetera. So I think it's very important that we have a thriving compounding economy, and that any attempts to thwart it get beat back by the community. So I do think, and you can go, I believe that we have this up on our link tree, that you can go and you can fight against some of that stuff that's happening. Perhaps we need to revisit. So, because there's even legislation in Iowa coming up that is looking at, reducing compounding. I don't like any of it. But ultimately, I think the need for GLP compounding is being reduced by the expanded access of the branded medication. And, conversely, if you were a value shopper and you were just buying compounds for the price, they're still not super competitive with the branded medication, in my opinion, when you look at if you're somebody who's looking at the gray market, which is much cheaper. And a lot of people are going that route, whether you like it or you don't like it, love it or hate it. A lot of people are going to the gray market. And so I think that's, it's an interesting question, TT. I don't think they're going anywhere, but I think they're becoming a little less relevant. Agree, disagree? I'm curious to hear from the community on that one.
Yeah.
Kelly said, I mentioned above, I had no idea about my PCOS until a sonogram during our infertility testing. The string of pearls around my ovary was the only physical symptom that I had. Very interesting. I assume that's like benign tumors that maybe grow. I guess it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. So these cysts.
Polyps.
Thank you for the support, folks. Thanks for the tool of the medications, 100%. In the news with Sabina, Florida, Virginia, et cetera, state legislation bills. Yeah, there's probably 4 or 5 states right now, Florida being probably the biggest threat. There's also a state bill in Indiana. There's a federal bill. The federal bill is the one that we were opposing because that will serve as a messaging bill to the state legislation bills that are going, but they're attacking this from all angles, 100%. Have you seen a new wave of protein sodas hitting the market? Yes, CJ. In fact, I have some in my fridge at home. I have some. My wife kind of struggles to get all her protein in, so we've gotten some of those protein sodas. She was like, take them or leave them. She really likes the 30 gram of protein Fairlife meal replacement that they make. It's delicious. So it's hard to beat that, but I have seen them, and maybe I'll do a review on them at some point. Insurance doesn't cover weight loss medication. Yours may not. Some do, but definitely not all of them. Thank you, Inkerton Science. Good to see you here. Thank you. I'm starting to feel better, although I felt like I was regressing. I didn't sleep at all last night. I maybe slept for 2 hours last night. Again, we've had kids up every night. It's been brutal. I'm not trying to bleed all over you today, but It's been a rough couple of weeks. I still
I
need
can't
compounding as
imagine.
Aetna has cut coverage. Man, Ruben has been through it. He's gotten coverage, lost coverage. It reminds me of that Michael Scott snip, snap, snip, snap, snip. You have no idea the toll that losing my GLP-1 medication takes on a person. That's like
Three
Ruben's story.
vasectomies.
3 vasectomies. Snip, snip,
Have
snip,
on a
snap,
man.
snip. That is the best. Bear
Not to
bells
mention
came out.
Ruben
Okay,
and Sue the Dude. They're happy to lose their man boobs, they said.
yes, yes.
So not great for women, great for men.
Ideal for men. That's one of the things
women
when
get man boobs.
I've been
from that.
I went off the Manjaro about a month ago. First of all, I want to say like my mental health is a lot better having gone off of Manjaro. I'm just gonna say it. It is. But it was much better at controlling appetite. I'm maintaining on the pill, but I was down in the 260s, and now I'm up about 10 pounds, and I'm maintaining there. So it's kind of frustrating, but
Yeah.
it is what it is till the newer treatments become available. Let's see here. We got about 4 minutes left. I think this was a super great conversation. I hope that you all enjoyed it. A couple of housekeeping things. If you enjoyed the live stream today, hit the thumbs up button and tell somebody that you enjoyed it and share it with somebody. We got about 410 people watching. So if you're not subscribed, I know that most of those watchers are, I believe, on X. So follow us along on X. We share all of the breaking news about obesity medicine, nutrient stimulated hormone therapies, and obesity medicine. We try to stay at the front, cutting edge of what's happening in obesity medicine so that you can have more competent and confident conversations with your doctor. That is the goal of what we are trying to accomplish here. And if that's helpful for you in your journey, our ask is simply that you would follow us along and interact with the content. One of the things that I always like to say here is to train the algorithm. That's the little Al Gore in the sky who trains all the computers to deliver you the content that you like. And every time that you like, every time that you subscribe, you train little Al Gore.
There he is.
And little Al Gore literally will give you more of this content if you interact with it, if you like it, if you subscribe, if you comment. So train little Al Gore, the Al Gore rhythm, and he will do you right. And just share this with somebody if you would. Hambone, you got anything else for today?
No, I just got to figure out if I can walk into my pharmacy, or not my pharmacy, my urgent care, and they have a little what do you call it, where they draw blood? Losing my
Lab?
words today. Labs, a lot of labs you can walk in, and there's a panel that you can just pay cash for, and I'm wondering if
kidding.
they can do. Yeah, they can test a lot of things at most labs. Just walk in, no appointment even. So I'm gonna maybe
Get
call
a
over.
fasting insulin and come back and tell us.
Yeah, I think I will.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see that.
Hopefully, I'm assuming they can do that. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It just has to be a fasting test.
Yeah. Is that usually 12 or 24, or how many hours do you fast?
I think 12, just like
12?
Usually when I get it, the doctor says don't eat after dinner. And no food, no water. And it's usually how it goes for me.
Yeah.
And then usually I have the appointment in the morning.
Yeah.
One thing I want to tease for tomorrow, that we're going to be doing a great video and a great Substack. If you're not subscribed, go screenshot this video and then go into your camera roll and tap that little what's that called, a QR code. Tap that, it'll take you right to our Substack. We're going to do a great article write-up about a New England Journal of Medicine publication on the 3 different types of hunger, and why, if you struggle with a GLP-1 to get the kind of satiation that maybe other people report, the type of hunger that you experience the most may be a contributing factor to that. And what contributes biologically to each different kind of hunger. There's essentially 3 different kinds, and these drugs primarily deal with the hedonic hunger, the pleasure reward center of your brain. But if that's not the reason that's driving your reason to eat, they may not be treating you the same way they treat somebody else, because ultimately you're losing weight by reducing your caloric intake. But there's a spectrum of disease with obesity, and we're just starting to understand some of the nuance that goes along with that, including what happens in the gut. That's why I take gut feeling from integrated peptides. I know Hambone takes this as well,
Yeah.
because part of the hunger that some people deal with is hunger that originates in the gut because of gut microbiome and different gut bacteria that are out of whack. That happens a lot with people with obesity and diabetes. We're going to get into that on the Substack. I hope that you'll check it out. Make sure you follow along, and we're going to drop a video here on YouTube. So make sure you're like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you get that. Hambone, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you get feeling better.
Thanks. I'm super looking forward to that conversation about the different types of hunger. That one's fascinating me. So thanks
I
for
think
having
that's
me,
going to
guys.
be a good one. I also want to say thank you to Shed, who is our sponsor of our podcast. You can go to tryshed.com and use code OTP25 to save 25%. Shed is a great resource if you need to get connected with a provider, be seen for your disease of obesity. They've got different options in terms of treatments that might be available to you when medically appropriate, and all of the side effects and everything that you need to know about, they'll connect you with.
Yeah.
So thank you to Shed for sponsoring what we do here at On the Pen. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being the best part of what we do. Couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't do it without you. Until next time, which will be tomorrow when we drop a new video, and then live again every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern. We'll